Alright, welcome to the Toast Review Unit 5 about triangles. Oh, yay! Anyways, let's move on because we got a lot to cover. Okay, so for number 1, let's go from here. Now, first off, keep in mind that I would give you like this information for like the triangle, and then from there you've got to tell me what you would say is the anyways, what is the type of triangle it is based on the angles and based on the sides. Now this one is an acute scaling. It's acute because all 3 angles are less than 90 degrees, and then it's scaling because all 3 sides are different. So keep in mind we can classify triangles based on angles and sides. So, and you might want to add this to your note sheet, like the sides, scalene, equilateral, isosceles, and know that scalene is all different, equilateral is all the same, isosceles is 2 sides the same. Acute is all less than 90, right is a 1 angle equals 90, and obtuse is 1 angle is greater than 90. So that might be something to add to your note sheet. Alright, let's move on to question number 2. Okay, so notice here it says that this is equilateral. So that means all 3 sides are equal. So it doesn't matter which of the 2 sides I set equal to each other, because no matter what, they're all going to give me the same answer. So I decided to go ahead and set these 2 equal. And say variables to the left, numbers to the right. 10 minus 7 is 3x. 6 plus 3 is 9. And then I can divide by 3 to get x equals 3. Now, since they're equilateral, I can put that 3 into any of the x's and I will get the same answer no matter what. So I put the 3 here into the bottom one and say 8 times 3 is 24. So all 3 sides are equal to 24. Wow, that's like genius, sir. I know, right? Okay, now for number 3, what's going on here? No, don't change sides. Anyways, on number 3, we want to find the measures of the sides using for EFG. Now notice there, that means there are 3 sides. There's EF, there's FG. So like if I look at this like this, EFG, I've got EF, FG, and GE. Okay, so how do I find the distance or the length of each side? Well, you go through the distance formula. Okay, so I kind of went too far here. Right there. Okay, so you go through the distance formula, and again, that's something else you might want to add to your formula sheet. And then you would say, okay, so what does that mean? Okay, so subtract the x's plus squared plus subtract the y squared. So notice how I've got this written. EF, FG, GE. Then I would put the points in where they go. So I'm putting in the points E, then F, then G, and then G, then E. And then I plug those into the calculator and type those in, and I get basically those 3 answers. And because of that, because these 2 sides are equal, this is an isosceles triangle. If all 3 sides had been equal, it would have been equilateral. If all 3 had been different, it would have been scaling. So there you go for number 3. Number 4, okay, so some properties that we've got to remember. Remember, when you see a straight line, that's going to mean that this is a linear pair, so these 2 add up to 180 degrees. Okay, we know that 2 angles of a triangle add up to the angle that's on the outside. Okay, we also know that vertical angles that are opposite, are congruent. What else could I say here? And then again, all 3 angles of a triangle add up to 180 degrees. So if I say 180 minus 110, I get that angle right there next to this 110 is 70. And since these 2 sides are congruent, those angles that correspond to them are also congruent. So angle 1 is 70. Okay? And since that one's 70, I could say 70 plus 70 is 140. And that would give me angle 2 because that's on the outside. And then I could also have found out that the inside angle there is 40 because 70 plus 70 is 140. 180 minus 140 would give me 40. And since that angle there on the last angle of the triangle is 40, so it's this vertical angle. And then I could say 90 plus 40 to get 130 and subtract that from 180 to find out angle 3 is 50. So again, just think about what you're applying and it should hopefully be easy. All right, list all the corresponding sides and angles. I'm just going to give you those answers, but keep in mind, make sure that you got the things together. Notice here, like I'm making sure that angle, oopsie, wrong thing, angle A and angle F are kind of work together, angle C and angle G, and angle B and angle D. Also notice here how I have said ACB is congruent to FGD, how like A corresponds to F, C corresponds to G, B corresponds to D. And how do you know that? Look at these hash marks. That's how you know that, okay? So make sure you're paying attention to those type of things when you're trying to identify the corresponding bits. All right, number 8, I will definitely reword, but the point is I want to make sure, oh, you can't read any of that. Okay, I want to make sure you can see that this is done based on the information given. So here we're saying that we have, let's say, and ignore the rest of this. I want to know if the left triangle and the right triangle are congruent, and how so? Well, you notice here you've got one set of sides congruent and 2 sets of angles congruent. So that means you're either using angle side angle or angle angle side. Now notice here how I can go angle, angle, side, so that's why it's angle, angle, side. If it had been angle side angle, it would have been something like this, where I go angle, like that. Notice how the side is in between the 2 angles? Then that's how I would know that it's angle side angle. All right? So be prepared that you need to know, like, these 4 ideas right here, and how you can add them. Maybe you can put those into your note sheet so you know, and give yourself some examples of like side, 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 side angle, side. That might help you. Anyways, moving on. All right, number 9, how can I find that? Well, since this one is 40, then this angle and this angle have to be congruent. So then that would mean that's 40 and 40. And then that means the other angle, 180, if you add those 2, you get 80. So 180, because all triangles add up to 180. Minus 80 is 100. And then that means this angle is 80. And then keep in mind, that's the vertex angle. That's the one that's different. So if I say 180 minus 80, I get 100. And that means those 2 angles, because these 2 angles are congruent, are going to be 50. Because this angle and that angle correspond to each other like that and are congruent. Find the value of x. There's so many different ways to do this. But since I decided that these are equal, that means these angles are all equal. And we'll go ahead and say that this angle, or 15x equals 10x plus 20. And I'm going to say subtract out the 10x. So that gives me 5x. And then I can divide. So basically I said variables to the left, numbers to the right. There was no numbers to go to the right. 15 minus 10 is 5x. Divide by 5, I get x equals 4. And that's it. No matter how you solve this, it should have given you x equals 4. Again, there's other ways to solve that. I'm just giving you one. So just kind of go with that. All right. So now let's look at number 11, 12, 13, 14. The main thing I think here is just make sure you realize which triangle they're talking about. So when we talk about RV and RT, we're talking about the big, so we end up looking at RVT, the big triangle. So what 2 angles would be congruent? It would be RTV and RVT, because we're looking at the big angles of the triangle. If I look at number 12, then I'm looking at, say, RS and SV, these 2. So I'm looking at this triangle right here, and then what angles would that be? That would be SVR and SRV, which would be choice C. On number 13, I'm looking at those 2 angles being congruent, so I'm looking at that triangle. And so if that's the case, then I'm going to say RT and SR, or RS, are congruent, so that would be choice B. And then finally, on number 14, I have no idea why I like doing that one so much. Okay, so number 14, notice, was also part of this. And on number 14, by the way, when things get mixed around on the test, If you don't understand what a question refers to, like a drawing, please let me know and ask the questions. It's okay to ask questions and stuff like that. Anyways, we're looking at that triangle, the bottom one, and so we're saying those two angles are congruent. That means SV and ST have to be congruent, so that would be choice D. And there you go. All right, so now let's look at number 15. That one's going to be a big one. Okay, so number 15 starts off like this. Again, you're going to use the distance formula. You're going to try to find the distance from DE, EF, FD, and then PQ, QR, and RP. And you're going to do that whole distance formula, and this takes time. By the way, I will probably make this worth more points on the test just because it takes so much time. It should be weighted more. So anyways, you're going to plug in those numbers, and then you're going to compare. And what I would do is make sure I do DE, then PQ, and then EF and QR. Because if any of those don't match, then the answer is they're not congruent. If they match, then it stays congruent. So notice I'm putting in the points and kind of going from there. And then, so I type that into the calculator, and I get DE is 3.61. Then I do PQ, and I get 3.61. So they are congruent. Okay? But I do EF, and I get 4.47. I do QR, and I get 5.09. Those aren't congruent. So DEF can't be congruent to PQR. Maybe in a different order it would have been, but they asked specifically like that. So these triangles are not congruent. Not congruent. And that's it for that. All right. I know I'm going through this kind of fast, but you know, gotta go. By the way, let's do this for extra points. On your test, you have to write rockets. That will be your bonus word for 5 points at least. Rockets. Okay. So how can I prove these are possible or not? If you look at number 16, I can show that the vertical angles are congruent, but I've only got one set of sides and one angle, so that one's not possible. But if you look at 17, I've got two sides and an angle, but I don't have anything that says side, side, angle. I mean, it's side, 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 or side, angle, side, or angle, angle, side, or angle, side, angle. So I don't have anything that says SSA. So I got to find something else. Now, every side is always congruent to itself. So that side that they share is congruent to itself. And now if you look at it, I've got side, angle, side because I've got a side, I've got an angle, and then I've got another side. Wow! So side, angle, side would be for that one. All right. Let's look at number 17. If you notice, I'm sorry, not 17, 18. 18 and 19. So I'm using this drawing. Now notice here, angle A, or A, goes with P. So that means the 2x plus 4 goes with the 100. And I'll come back and show you something else in a second, but let me show you the answer for that, or solving that. So this is 18. Don't ignore that it says 17. So notice here, I've set them equal, I solved, I subtracted, then I divide, and I get x equals 48. Okay, now, I'm going to stop there for a second, go back to the drawing. So notice here, I'm saying here, CD and P is and RS. So CD and RS are congruent to each other, so that means that 3y minus 12 is equal to, or 3y minus 3 is equal to 12. So I do that one and solve it. And I would go from there, add 3, divide by 3, and I would get y equals 5. Yeah, and that is 18 and 19. I was a little slow on the uptake on that one. All right, number 20, make sure you know how to do proofs. On this one, the reasoning for that one was congruence of angles is transitive, which is not something we've really talked about. But I would say this. If you don't see it, if you don't recognize, if that reason doesn't make sense to you, then try to go with, obviously go like if you know the other ones like corresponding angles are congruent, supplementary angles are congruent. By the way, supplementary angles aren't congruent. Alternate interior angles are congruent. Try to use like the reason, like the stuff that we know, and I guarantee you I will try to make sure that the proof is something simple. Anyways, I'm going to cut it short there. It's been it's a test review, so kind of go with that. Y'all have been great. I know I push y'all a lot sometimes, but trust me, guys, I'm doing it because I give a darn, and just keep doing what you're doing, or keep being awesome, okay? Try to do your best. Anyways, thank you so much for your time. Y'all take care.